Thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Emily Yetman. I'm Executive Director of Living Streets Alliance, and I have the honor of introducing Gil tonight, and it's hard to even know what to say when someone like this comes to town, because I remember in 2010 when we had our first Ciclovia event and we closed the streets for one day, and 5,000 people came out, and we saw this, right? We saw this, and there was this moment where we realized, oh my gosh, people are ready for this. Tucson is ready for this, and we want this, and so it's really exciting. You know, we've got our 14th Ciclovia coming up, so it feels really exciting to be able to bring Gil here today on the, I guess it's not the eve, but the eve of the eve of the eve, right? So, thank you all for being here. I'm going to read a quick introduction to Gil, not that you need one. I'm sure you all did your homework and you've been following him for years as we have, but in case you haven't, Gil is passionate about cities for all people. He advises decision makers and communities on how to create vibrant cities and healthy communities for everyone, regardless of age and social, economic, or ethnic background. He's the founder and chair of an internationally recognized Canadian nonprofit called 8 to 80 Cities, and he's also chair of World Urban Parks. And he's going to talk about a lot of that, and then I get to wrap it all up. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Gil, and let's give him a big round of applause.
Thank you. How nice. Look at that little girl. Fantastic. So tonight, we're going to be talking about sustainable mobility. Also, we're going to talk about parks and cities and communities. And keep in mind, some cities that I'm going to talk about are bigger than Tucson, some are smaller. Some are wealthier, some are poorer. But it doesn't matter. When we talk, there might be cities of 10,000 people or cities of 10 million. The issues are the same. You need public transit in the city of 10,000. Maybe you're going to have 3 or 4 buses. You need public transit in the city of 10 million. Maybe you need a tram or 2. We're living longer in the city of 10,000 and we're living longer in the other. So the issues are similar. So let's keep our mind open to those. Also, in the small city, we got climate change. And in the large one, we also are being affected by climate change. Even if some people, maybe they're going to start believing. We got population growth everywhere, and most of it is urban. In the US, 9 out of 10 people live in cities. We're going through a public health crisis, physical, mental, emotional. We're living longer. Not longer, much, much longer. Look at this. This is the life expectancy. All of these are the countries in the world. 200 years ago, there was not a single country with a life expectancy above 45. None. So many of us would be dead by now. Today, there is not a single country with a life expectancy below 45. It's amazing what has happened in the last 200 years. So that, plus the public health crisis and climate change and so on, means that we are facing an urgency. We need to decide, how do we want to live? I was just chatting with a wonderful principal of an elementary school. If we want our children to walk to school, we got to have small schools so that the catchment area is small. So we need to decide, how do we want to live? And when I talk about sustainable mobility, I'm thinking about walking, riding bicycles, use of public transit, new uses of cars. By the way, walking and cycling is not a joke. In some places, people treat it as a joke. Sometimes you go to politicians, they say, oh yeah, you know, that's nice. No, no, it's not nice. You know, this could be any street in Tucson. And then people say, oh, Gil, but here is warm. I went for a run this afternoon, and people say, oh, are you crazy? Did you go for a run? Weather is always an issue, because it's too cold, because it's too hot, because it's too rainy. Maybe we should learn that there is no such thing as bad weather. It's bad clothing. You know, this morning I had a meeting with a few of the decision makers of the city. Fantastic, really good people. They were really on. But for example, a lot of them were wearing ties, the men. I said, look, if you love ties, that's fine. But it should not be expected. If women want to wear high heels, that's fine. But it should not be expected. I mean, God was so generous with you, with the weather. I'm sure that if you're wearing those huge high heels or wearing a tie, you're not going to be having lunch too far from your office, or else you're going to be driving. If we want people to walk and bike and use public transit. But let me get back. Walking and cycling is not a frivolity. Walking and cycling is the only individual mode of mobility for most people. It's the only individual mode of mobility for all children and youth around the world. You gotta be the son or the daughter of the wealthiest person in Tucson. If you are under 16, your only individual mode of mobility is to walk or to bike. So it should be safe and enjoyable, almost like a human right. Unless you think that only those that have the money and the age and the desire to drive a car have a right to individual mobility. That's why we're also talking about democracy and human rights and equality and sustainability, because everything is really linked to everything. So in addition to sustainable mobility, tonight I'm also going to talk about parks and public spaces. And let's open our mind. You know, a few months ago I was working in Poland and I saw these sculptures, and they maybe thought that these people were getting cold, and then they lended the scarf. Public spaces are kind of magical. All of a sudden you see these little people pushing the ball, and then the children see this and they're helping them out. Public spaces are great. You know, Detroit is being revitalized, and they're working on public spaces in the downtown. Sometimes it's in the middle of the city, like Piedmont in Atlanta. Sometimes it's elevated, like New York, or along the river in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And the things we do in public spaces, so let's open our minds. In the last World Cup of soccer, I was working in Chicago, and I would go see the games in the parks. And that's what they were doing in South Korea, and in Bogota, and in Germany. But again, public spaces is not just about sport. The umbrella revolution in Hong Kong, where do people go? People go to the public places. Occupy Wall Street, people go to the public spaces, to the parks. Jesuit Charlie in Paris. The great thing about public spaces is that are fantastic equalizers. Here no one cares about the ethnicity, or if it's old or young or fat or skinny. Everybody's great. It's a great equalizer. But it's not just politics. You go to Rio, 2 million people in Rio. It wasn't during the World Cup. It was a few months before. The Pope came and gave a mass for 2 million people. But it doesn't have to be big. Sometimes we're in a small neighborhood, we got stairs, and it totally transformed. This guy is watching to make sure that everybody's paying attention. Imagine from the point of view of citizen engagement that you get stairs and you get 130 steps and you get 130 different families, each one painting one step and putting their initials, the level of commitment, of sense of belonging. So that's why when people say, Gil, what's a good city? I say, well, a good city, a good definition is where I want to sleep at home, but I want to live outside. That's what we need here in Tucson. We want to be able to sleep at home and live outside. That's why I'm so happy that the Living Streets Alliance invited me, and that you got great partners at the university, at the city. And don't even put it on your calendar, just in your brain. This Sunday, the 8th, 10 to 3, make sure you go. And bring all your friends and family and everybody. So I'm gonna be talking today about streets and cities. And I'm going to make emphasis on vibrant cities and healthy communities. I'm going to make some emphasis on equity and public health. But to put things into context, I'm going to talk a little bit about Bogota and 80 cities, and I'm going to end with 8 messages in Tucson. Bogota, obviously, is not the ideal city. But in my previous life, I've been living in Canada now for about 19 years. In my previous life, I lived in Bogota, and I was commissioner. And I learned that to change cities is not about the money, because we always say, oh, we don't have the money. No. And then you go around and they're widening roads or they're doing bridges. Also, I've been doing, so now I advise many cities, but I've been doing, so I know that it's not easy. For example, in one term we built over 200 parks from scratch, small ones, big ones. This was one of them. The Pope came here, gave a mass for 1 million people, and then the Pope left and almost nothing happened. There were not even sidewalks for 27 years. Why nothing happened in 27 years? Because change is hard everywhere. Change is hard in Tucson, change is hard in Copenhagen, in Bogota, in New York, everywhere. Because you try to change here in Tucson and the cave people show up. You know them, the cave, the citizens against virtually everything. But that's why each one of you has to become a champion at finding solutions to the problems. It's not about it's getting things done, not having 20 excuses why things cannot be done. Don't take no for an answer. It's so easy to take no for an answer. So it was like this for 27, 30 years, and in 4 years we turned it into a fantastic park for passive, for active, for contemplative. And Bogota is a city that is much poorer than Tucson. So it's about getting things done. Some activities that people do at their own pace and time. It's not just about soccer fields, it's also doing contemplative, that people go and see the birds and the plants. Other activities that people can do with others by themselves. The uses and the activities, and I'm going to talk about uses and activities a little more later on because it's so critical. It's really, really important. Also, the ciclovia. What is the ciclovia? I found a small program of just a few miles and few people, and we turned it into the world's largest pop-up park. Sunday mornings we pop it up, and people come out. Everybody. How do we do it? It's really hard for the Living Cities Streets Alliance to say that it's easy. No, it's not easy. But it's simple, not easy, simple. You open streets to people, and you close them to cars, and the magic happens. You have everybody coming out to walk, to bike, to skate. I wanted to make sure that we connected all of the income levels. So all of these colors are the different income levels. So that's why we went just from very small, very few people, to over 75 miles. Interconnecting everybody. Also some of the main parks so that people can use the streets also to go to the parks. And then you get people, all ages, young and old and rich and poor. Imagine 75 miles, but not everybody wants to walk or bike or skate, so along the road, some people do aerobics, others do Tai Chi or Cha-Cha-Cha. Anything, but it's about physical activity. The common denominator is physical activity, and it's also something that is so great. Who comes? Everybody. All you really need is 2 feet and a heartbeat, and you're going to be there. And that's why it's great. Young, old, rich, poor, fat, skinny. We get 1.7 million people every Sunday of the year. And every holiday. So it's about 65 days of the year. Who pays for it? The city, of course. It's good for everybody. And that's what I was telling also the decision makers this morning, the city manager and the other commissioners and the directors. Why? Because this is good for everybody. This is not just about recreation. This changes minds. All of a sudden we realize that the streets, they belong to all of us. The streets, they're public space. And they can have different uses according to the time of the day of the week of the year. And it's not just about recreation, it's about the environment. All of a sudden we measure the level of the noise at 10 a.m. on a Sunday, same place, 10 a.m. on Monday. We measure the quality of the air. It's good for health. It's good for physical health. It's good for mental health. People could walk around their neighborhood. Why do they go to the ciclovia? Because they want to be with others. They want to be with socials. You know, the thing that people enjoy the most is being with others. That's why cyclovia in Tucson is so important. That's why the government should fund it and say, okay, now for the next 12 months, we're going to do it monthly. We're going to do it the first Sunday of every month. To your elected officials. I mean, this is a time where citizens can no longer be spectators. You need to participate. You need to be engaged. You gotta tell them, you know, what's the risk? They are not building gymnasiums or arenas or community centers. So say, let's do it for a year. The first Sunday of every month. After a year, If no one is going, okay, then you don't do it anymore. What's the risk? Nothing. But if a lot of people are going, then you say, okay, now it's not going to be once a month, but it's going to be every Sunday of the year. So tell them about it. You know, the best cyclovia programs in the world are